prayer tonight, God, you would meet us here, that as a church and as individuals, God, we would not cower. We would understand that the greatest penalty has been taken from us, and we would live in that light and life. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you guys can have a seat. Well, good evening. It's kind of evening. Sun is still out. It feels like the middle of the day, but it's not. And Sloan has informed me that it's not real flannel he's wearing, so don't think he's completely lost his mind. If you're just joining us, I've got a couple of announcements real quick. One, that box over there, I had to move it over there from the back because somebody messed with it in the back. The box over there that has the logo there for Man She Woman, the current series we're doing, it's got a slit in the top. You can put questions or topics you would like us to cover the final week. I've kind of put that out as potluck. Anything we're not covering or you'd like to hear a little more about, I'd be happy to do that. If not, I will just pick something that'll go in line with capping off this series. But that is there for you. Second thing, Sunday school. We are back in Sunday school classrooms this Sunday. Last week it was a little different. We met in the gym. This week back in class, and then the following week we'll be back in the gym. And the third thing, after we're done this series for the summer, our current plan is to do a guys and a girls study at our house. Amber would lead the girls, I'd lead the guys, and do 3 weeks out of the month, and then the fourth week we'd come and do a chapel service. That way we still have some connection here as a large group, and everybody can hang out and get some more individual teaching over the summer. So if you have any days of the week, times, preference on study material, anything like that, topics, come to Amber or I, and we'd love to talk to you about that. This series that we're covering, Man She Woman, ? That was my idea. We're looking at some basic points of understanding. That's where we started this series off, and these are all online, and we can direct you to those places after the service. The basic understanding is where we started, like some basic elements of understanding what makes up a man, what makes up a woman. I think, left you with a very powerful illustration of the Garden of Eden, which I won't go back into right now, but kind of some of the why behind why we are the way we are. And we ended the first week talking about godly contentment and how Satan's number one desire is to take us off the course that God would have us on. And one of the best ways he can do that is by allowing us things that may seem pleasing for a season, but basically rail us off of having godly contentment. And that actually developing godly contentment can be the greatest way that we can set ourselves up for happily ever after. And we talked about, the last verse we talked about in that week was Isaiah 64:4, which closes out with this phrase that God acts on behalf of those who wait for him. Last week we talked about dating. We looked at, basically categorized it in 4 categories. The obvious, which is it seems like it's slim pickings for everybody. The bait, which was our appearance and how we present ourselves. The switch, which was some practical steps at how to avoid compromising the desires of your heart when it comes to dating. And then the dance of dating, which was some practical advice. We spent most of the time in the book of Proverbs last week, and we closed out talking about the inner beauty that Peter talks about in 1 Peter 3 and 4, about how the inner beauty is really what we should be going after because it doesn't fade, it doesn't change, and we talked about it is the bedrock of great marriages. And we talked about just that phrase of marrying the person, dating the person, and not the package. Now we're going to talk about pitfalls. And this is not going to be my version of don't do this, don't do that, and you'll have great relationships and a great marriage. This is going to be real quick, shedding some light on some things that sometimes the church will talk about, most of the time we won't because they're not fun things to talk about. First thing I put on Facebook this morning. We had a conversation last week, I think, about a Kohl's ad and the fly fishing. This is my fly box. It's kind of depleted right now because I've lost a bunch of them. But this is what I carry when I go fly fishing. And I've got my dry flies here and my wet flies here. And the dry flies, for those of you who don't know, are the ones that stay on top of the water on the surface. The wet flies are the ones that go down underneath. And they're all designed to look like different insects at different stages of the life cycle. In fly fishing, this is critical because you don't actually have a worm or bait or anything like that. And when they are tying the flies, what they're doing is they are making their best attempt at making an imitation of the real thing. And it's really, when you break it down, it's really nothing more complicated than a cleverly disguised death trap. Because all you got to do is get right up to that fly, if you're a fish, and take one bite. And that hook sets in, and you're a goner. Unless it's catch and release. That is, it has been said that one of Satan's greatest strategies is to convince the world that he's not real, nor that he is after the souls of men. And so we will see things in our culture and in our lives that look like the real thing, and we can't see the hook in them until it's too late. It's also been said that in any game where you have an opponent, the best offense is good defense. The last passage we looked at last week was in Proverbs 4:20 to 23. It's going to be on the screen here. This is Solomon writing to his son. He says, "My son, pay attention to what I say. Listen closely to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to a man's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life." And we closed out last week talking about how healthy, happy marriages have spouses who show consistent regard for the life, health, and well-being of the other. And it is because they've discovered the unfading beauty that Peter talks about in 1 Peter that is of both great worth in God's sight and is a great gain for their spouse. And in great relationships, you have a mutual element where, with Amber and I, if there's things that I see that are going to attack her heart, I will guard her heart as if it were my own, and her likewise. And that is a relational element of great relationships, is that you're looking out for someone else as if it were your own heart. And so the important element here in, if you can leave that last chapter 4, verse 23, can you leave that up? Next one. There you go. So he says, the heart is the wellspring of the body. So out of your heart, everything else in your body is affected. If you have a broken heart and you come in here, most likely people are going to be able to recognize something's wrong, because it's going to affect your face, it's going to affect your countenance, your body expression. There's really not any element of life. A lot of us, it'll affect the way we drive. It'll affect the way we talk to people at the fast food counter. It'll affect the way we answer a phone call. All that springs out of that heart that Solomon's talking about here. So I'm going to put this into picture to you to try to help make this a little more tangible. Let's say your heart is Fort Knox. And I know, the monetary system's changed a little bit, but let's just say everybody identifies money with Fort Knox. Fort Knox is your heart. The currency of your heart is affection. It may be affection for people, it may be things, it may be relationships, it may be whatever it is. Your heart, the reason you have a heart that's broken is because your affection has been changed against your will. So your heart is Fort Knox. The currency of your heart, instead of money, is affection. Okay? Now, Fort Knox. When they send money out of Fort Knox, do they send it on a moped? No. Do they send it on a horse-drawn carriage? No. What do? They send it in a solid steel enclosure with automatic weapons inside. Why do they do that? Because there is something of great value that they know is being exported from their heart, from Fort Knox. So let me ask you this question. As we look at what are you doing to guard your heart? If you have a quiet time, let's say you're an all-star and you have a quiet time every day for an hour. You go to church on Sunday. That's 8 hours out of the week. Assuming you have a quiet time and then go to church because you're an all-star. That's 8 hours out of a 168-hour week. If your heart's Fort Knox and you're posting a guard for 8 hours in a week, how difficult do you think it is for a thief to come in? It's a joke. If we are thinking that we can somehow guard ourselves by having a quiet time, by going to a Bible study, by going to church, by listening to a sermon, and it's not a continual thing that is before us, we are being duped. Second thing, as we look at what are you doing to guard your heart, what are you doing to guard your body? I mean, we talked about this the last couple of weeks, and it's not a fun topic to talk about. Paul says something which I think is a great passage for this concept here of guarding your body in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1. And he says this. He says, "Since we have these promises, dear friends, let us purify ourselves of everything that contaminates body and spirit, perfecting holiness out of reverence for God." And he starts that chapter, or what we know is chapter 7, and you're like, okay, what promises is he referring to? The end of chapter 6, he says this. I'll go a couple verses back. He says, as God has said, I will live with them and walk with them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. Therefore, come out from them and be separate, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. Paul is citing the writings of Ezekiel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, book of 2 Samuel, and Leviticus. He's saying, okay, I'm going to try to get through to you, Corinthians. I'm going to take part of the law, the book of the law, the first thing you know. Part of the first thing you know that came down from God was the law. I'm going to extract some of that. I'm going to take some of the history out of 2 Samuel, and I'm going to take some of the prophecy in Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Jeremiah, and I'm going to present it before you like this. And I'm just going to say, look here, guys. Since we have these promises, since God has said, I will be your God, you will be my people. Since we have these promises, it would only seem logical that we would purify ourselves from everything that contaminates this relationship that we have with God. Body and spirit. Perfecting holiness, not so we can be holier than thou. Perfecting holiness because we get that relationship. And it's one of reverence. The choices that we make, I'm not going to dwell on this too long, the choices that we make in terms of how we dress and how we present ourselves can be a way of perfecting holiness. I'm not saying it is the way, I'm just saying it can be a way. So I have a simple question for us tonight as it relates to this. When it comes down to brass tacks, what is my real motive for wearing whatever? What is my real motive for posting whatever on social media? And is it the right choice for the setting or the audience? Because there's things that all of us probably own that's perfectly fine to be wearing around the house. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine to, wear and hop in your car and go out to Chick-fil-A and go through drive-thru. probably not okay to wear to, a concert or a church or going to the mall. You want to see what's not okay to wear to the mall, go to the mall. Exhibits, X through whatever. Is it the right choice? And I'll just say this, because I confronted with somebody with this a couple weeks ago, and if you would like to respond in a way, if someone ever confronts you about what you post on social media or tries to address, especially if they try to address it biblically and non-threatening, and your response entails something to the effect of you calling yourself humble, let that be the first sign of pride in your life. Because no one who is truly humble has ever referred to themselves as being humble. They're mutually exclusive. They do not coexist. So, just lesson for your piggy bank. Proverbs 3, 7 and 8, as we talk about this. He says, "Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones." Being wise in our own eyes effectively is the same thing as being conceited. Sometimes it's in total innocence. We just think we know, and we don't. And sometimes we know, we just don't want to say so. All of us can be blind at times, myself included. A helpful way to counter blindness is to have someone you know and trust that you know can see clearly as well, because they may have a different perspective than you. Amber is, I've said this the last couple weeks, Amber is a great source. If you ever have a question, is this okay? Take a quick shot in the mirror, text it to Amber. She'll get back to you. Guys, same thing. I mean, we are here not to cast judgment, not to throw stones, but to say, hey, look, guys, you don't think like girls. Girls, you don't think like guys. We're trying to help you understand how the other ones think and how the other ones are and why they are that way. And beware of some of the life issues that, especially in this phase of life, are approaching. Third thing. This is going to be a little throwback to our days of youth. Most of us, when we were growing up in grade school, learned a song called Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes, Knees and Toes. I'm not going to go all the way down because I'll hurt something at this age. As a means of illustration, hopefully you'll be able to remember the course of this. Head. Guys, this is particularly for us because we're most guilty most often at this. Not entirely, but most of the time. Head. Pitfall. Giving advice when advice was never asked for. We are really good at this because most of the time we want to fix things. It is just in our nature. Okay? Ladies, I just want you to feel me. Okay? I just want you to identify with me. And you're just like, well, I could fix that so that never happens again. That is not what I want to hear. I'm not asking for that. I just want you. But if you did this, then we wouldn't be having this conversation ever again. Both sides understand that's valid. Kind of, because you're not wired like the other one, and it doesn't make sense. So guys, let me give you, lock this one down for the future. Girlfriend, wife, whatever, you're meeting up after work at Starbucks, and you remember, before you get there, she had a hair appointment today. And, by the way, this has never happened with Amber. I'm just making this up, so don't think I'm sharing family secrets. You pull up, and you're like, okay, first thing I got to do, I got to compliment her hair. So you walk into Starbucks, and she's giving you a look that you don't understand. Okay? She's giving you a look, you're like, deer in headlights. And then you're like, it looks great. I love it. The look doesn't change. you got to, your line of scrimmage, you got to call the audible. It looks terrible. I hate it. Like, yeah, I mean, at that point, she starts to like, now, here's the important part, okay? You have done your duty at acknowledging the haircut, complimenting, calling the audible, trying to do what's right. For about the next 20 to 30 minutes, you are going to have a description of this hair appointment with the level of detail of a Supreme Court justice. And what is going to happen is somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute mark, she's going to say something like, I just want a decent haircut, which to you sounds like a concluding statement. You would be wrong. That is intermission. That is where you would say, can I go to the bathroom real quick? I really had to go when I got here, but you're so important, and I just want to hear your story. Go to the bathroom, come back for the second half of the show. You're going to have the thought, I think the last time she had a hair appointment, it went about like this, and if she would just go to a different salon, we wouldn't be having this conversation for 30 to 45 minutes. You cannot say that, okay? You keep that thought to yourself for another day. That is not time for that conversation to happen. It is a relevant point. All she wants you to do is to feel her. She wants you to be like, I can't believe she screwed up your highlights like that. I mean, you pull it off, but most people, no, okay? Don't give advice when advice is not asked for. Listen for it. If she says, what do you think? Then you can give advice. If she doesn't say that, she doesn't want that, okay? That's ahead. Shoulders. Pitfall relationships, lack of accountability. I saw something years ago I will never forget. I was in a park, and there was a guy that was walking his dogs. He had 2 dogs, 1 leash, and he was not holding either dog. This man is a genius. He had the leash connecting the 2 dogs. And I went up to him, and I said, explain this to me. You're walking your dogs. They're pretty much staying with you, but you're not holding them. They're leashed together. I've never seen this in my life. I've never heard of this. He wasn't Caesar, the dog whisperer, or anything like that. And he said this. He said, they're joined together because every now and then one of them will get off track. He said, but the other one knows he's supposed to be, this is the path we walk. And so the other one will kind of give that resistance and kind of pull him back. And then when that one kind of gets off track, the other one, he's on the track and he's kind of pulling him back. That's the picture of accountability. None of us, most of us think when it comes to accountability, I've either got to be the dependent person that I can never offer anything, and then I just feel bad doing that. And other people think, well, I'm never going to be super spiritual, so I can't really be anybody's accountability partner. None of us stay right on top of the center line of that path. The picture of accountability is, look, you got somebody to kind of give you some resistance, kind of pull you back when you start straying off course, and then when they start straying off course, you're kind of there and you're pulling them back. It's as simple as that. That's shoulders, people to lean on. Knees and toes. Ladies, this is not entirely for you, just like the first one was not entirely for guys, but I will give you this warning. Because I've seen this happen multiple times in my life. You have women, wives particularly, that say they desire leadership in their home and they're unwilling to follow their husbands. And pardon this illustration, but most of us have had puppies, seen puppies. Puppies are beautiful. Puppies bring joy in your life until you try and walk a puppy. And then you just want to return it. because it's not a natural thing for puppies. It's like they want to get excited and go play and go for a walk, but then, it's like boom. And it's like there's a combination of Velcro and earth magnets that glue their butt to the ground, and they went from weighing 8 pounds to 80 pounds, like virtually instantaneously. And I'm not going to belabor this point, but I'm just going to say, you understand that level of frustration just on a simple level of trying to walk a puppy that doesn't necessarily want to follow you. How much more difficult do you think it is to try and lead someone who's unwilling to follow? It's a difficult thing, and we're gonna touch on that a little bit more at the end here. But just again, I'm not casting judgment. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just saying, be aware of these things. Now we gotta go into the uncomfortable realm. After the first week, Amber said something to me about being uncomfortable with some of the things we were talking about. I said, "You're uncomfortable." I said, "I'm really uncomfortable because I'm up there talking about it, and I don't know what people are going to react to." If we did not talk about pornography and masturbation when we're talking about pitfalls in relationships, I would be the biggest buffoon on the planet. Porn. We basically all know what it is. It's naked people. And I heard years ago from my pastor at the time, there's a difference between naked people and naked people. And I said naked on purpose. Naked people are people that just don't have clothes on. Naked people are people that don't have clothes on and they're up to something. Most of us understand what it is, and that's as far as we go in our mental processing of it. We don't really think about what it does. Pornography results in the people losing themselves, not bolstering themselves. It is a path of relationship ostracism, where you don't know how to connect to people. It's not a path of wholeness, it's a path of emptiness. But most of us don't see that until we're too far down the path, and then we're like, where'd everybody go? How do I talk to a girl without staring at her like I stare at my computer screen? And does it even, again, I'm just going to look at a different perspective maybe for you. Does it ever cross your mind that the people in the porn industry are paid actors? Okay? They are paid actors that are being paid to sell videos and magazines and online subscriptions. And it is not, what they're doing is not remotely close to the real thing, because what they're doing is not real. That's why I think the Academy Awards and these shows for actors, I think it's hilarious. I mean, I don't watch them because I can't take them seriously. It's like, you're the best person that we had this year at pretending to be someone else. You're the best pretender. Never mind your personal life, which, by the way, is horrendous. You're the best actor. Let me put it this way. You would have better luck expecting to generate superpowers from your next spider bite than expecting that your bedroom and your relationship with your spouse would ever resemble a porn studio. Okay? It would be more reasonable for you to expect to become Spider-Man. And I realized the other week, for some of you, I ruined McDonald's, and we're just going to take it a step further tonight. You go into McDonald's, and I hope I don't get sued for this, but you go to McDonald's and you order whatever the burger of the quarter is, whatever, and you get your burger and you sit down at your booth there after you've taken in the newly renovated facade of McDonald's and the glory of that, and you sit there and you look, and out of the corner of your eye is the poster for what you just ordered. And you're looking at it, and you're looking up at the poster, and you're looking at it, and you're looking up at the poster, and you're like, I don't think this is what I got. And so you go back up there, and you're like, I ordered that. And they're like, yeah, that's what you have. I'm like, it's not really what I have, because I was looking for that, and this is, did you drop this 3 times? So the reason your burger does not look like what's on the poster is because what's on the poster is high-grade plastic. I learned this when I was in college. I had a marketing degree, and this is one of the things that I remember from school. We had some guys from another fast food chain come in and talk to us one time about this, and it was fascinating to me. The reason things look so different on the posters is because none of it's edible. When was the last time you saw one of those posters that had a single crumb anywhere? They're not there. It's not real food that they're taking pictures of. Same thing with cereal makers. You know, you make your bowl of cornflakes or whatever in the morning, and you're looking at your box, and you're like, that looks a lot better than mine. Maybe it's just because they have a clear bowl, and mine is, I got Tupperware. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they use whole milk. You know what they use? They use Elmer's glue. Okay? You try to ingest that McDonald's burger or that bowl of cereal that's in the ad, you're going to die or get very, very sick. But you know what they do? They take nice pictures, and they sell boxes of cereal, and they sell fast food menu items, and so do naked actors. They take nice pictures for magazine and video and internet sales. That's it. So that's all we're going to discuss as it relates to pornography tonight. At some point, maybe next year, we'll do a little more on that topic, but we're just talking in relationship pitfalls. If you don't think pornography is a major issue in marriages today, you're an idiot. I don't know how else to say it. Next thing, Matt, I'm sorry, you are. I'm not going to apologize for that. Next thing, masturbation, the word that no one likes to look at, talk about, or say, especially me. I'm going to give you some statistics here, and this is from 2011, and this is going to floor you, because we think we know the statistics on masturbation. It's mostly a male problem. It's it's a little better inside the church than it is outside of the church. Whatever. This statistics from 2011, 95% of men admit to it. Compared to the female population, which you think is, like 13%? 89%. 89%. This is basically 90% of the population admits to it. For married people, that's just 70% for both. Married Christian men, 61%. They didn't give a statistic for Christian women. I don't know why. More than 40% of males and 20% of females admit to doing it daily. 4 out of 10 women prefer it over sex with their husband. And at this very moment, almost 800,000 Americans are doing it. That's more than the entire population of Alaska right now. If we don't talk about this, if we don't talk about in the church what 9 out of 10 people are doing, we might as well close up, because we have lost relevance in our culture. If it's an issue that is in marriages as much as 60%, we better talk about it. And we think, until we hear statistics like this, that this is primarily a male problem, and I would say more than likely yes. But a couple years ago, a guy that was an accountability partner with me shared that after a counseling appointment that his wife had been on, she came home and, on the prodding of the counselor, confessed to him that she had been doing it in secret since high school. She asked him if he thought it was a sin. I'm going to make this real easy for you, because I'm not going to belabor this point. If you've been doing anything for that long in secret, you've already answered your own question. This isn't going to be on the screen, but John chapter 3 is where I would point you to answer your own question. 3:16, we all know. 3:17, Jesus didn't come to give wrath, but that we would receive salvation. 3:19, he says, this is the verdict. Here it is, folks. Here it is. You want to know the verdict? That's what everybody waits for at the end of the court case. The verdict: light has come into the world, but mankind loved darkness, things that are done in secret, where no one's watching. They loved darkness rather than light. Why? Because their deeds were evil. It's that simple. And so, real quick, this is just a strategy I developed for another struggle in my life, and I think it will work very well for you. This is an area, or you talk with somebody, this is an area they struggle with. Because the issue is, can you distract your mind long enough? Most of the time, this element of life is not a heart issue as much as it is a mental struggle. So can you distract your mind long enough for the horniness to fade? Because that's really as far as we need to get with this. Because most of us don't walk around just, with it constantly on your mind. It's you get in a weak place at the wrong time. And so, let's say you're in your house, you're alone, and the thought hits you. Maybe it's something on TV, maybe it's something you see on the internet, whatever, and you're going to go upstairs, take care of things. As you're walking down towards the front door, on the doorbell rings. On the right side of the side light, you see what looks like a fairly familiar scene, but you've never seen it at your front door before. And there's several people outside. They're wearing suits, and there's a van out by the curb, and you see a bunch of balloons and what appears to be a large check that they're holding. And out of the corner of your eye, you see the number 50 and then comma and a bunch of zeros. Question. Would you turn them away? Because you had to go up. That was what you were preoccupied with. You didn't see a solution, but somebody's up on your doorstep with $50 million for you. I think we'd find a way to curb that notion. And this is the reality. Satan wants to fool you into thinking that there's no alternative than going forward with this. When the reality is, it's the exact opposite. The reality is that virtually anything and everything can distract your mind. It can be a car horn, it can be a phone call, it can be reading a book, playing a video game, going out and swinging a golf club. Whatever it is, there's really only one way to fall in that path. But he doesn't want you to realize that, so he fixates your mind and your temptation on the one end. The tactic that I've shared with numerous people over the years, again, this is something I'm not going to get into tonight, where I came up with this, but let's say I'm here in the church and thought hits me, and I look out the window and I see stained glass. Remember, battlefield is up here, not in here. I see the stained glass. See, stained glass are in a lot of churches. Churches are also known as cathedrals. There's a lot of cathedrals in Europe. In Europe, there's a lot of cobblestone. Cobblestone comes from rocks. Rocks are big and heavy. They need big equipment to get big rocks out of things. They're called caterpillars. Caterpillars change into moss. See what I did? Where did my mind start? Can anybody trace those thoughts? You get your mind as far away. You get your mind as far away and as quick from the subject matter. And the more you do that, the better you'll be at it, and the less Satan will bother you with that because he knows it's a waste of time. Easier targets are far and wide. Just food for thought. The last passage we're going to talk about is in Ephesians 5. It's the first 8 verses. By the way, a little context here. This is the preamble, if you will, to the passage that everybody hates outside of the church about wives submitting to their husbands and that sort of thing. Ephesians 5, 1-8, he says, "Be imitators of God. Therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. But among you, there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. Nor should there be obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. For of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, such a man is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be partners with them. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light." He says in verse 1, he says, follow God's example. Why? He says, because you're dearly loved children. Going back to the beginning, understanding that relationship of reverence, that God would call us his children because of those promises. Follow God's example. And he says, walk in the way of love. Look, when you look at pornography or when you masturbate or whatever you do that is impure, when you dress in a way that might lure someone's arousal to you, are you walking in the way of love? And you want to know whether things are sin or not, just ask yourself this question. Go to this passage. Verse 3 says, don't let there be a hint. If you do any amount of cooking, if you have a powerful spice, you better not put much in it, because it'll ruin everything. And if you put a little bit, there'll be a hint. People will be able to tell it's there. He's saying, don't let there be a hint. To the extent you can control it. Verse 6, he says, sorry, I lost my place here. I'll get it. In verse 6, it says, let no one deceive you with empty words. For because of such things, God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. It's a pretty simple question, but what is worth having God's wrath targeted on you? In the last verse, verse 8, he says, for you were once darkness. You used to hide the things that you knew were disgraceful. But now, you are the light in the Lord. So live as children of light. And when you have questions or when you are tempted, whatever that relationship, it can be an attitude, whatever that pitfall looks like for you, just ask yourself this question. Is this what the light of Christ looks like? As we navigate through relationships, dating, potentially into marriage, understand that both our world and our enemy have created imitations of the real thing, of the life and the love and the relationship that our hearts desire, the way that God wired us for connection with the spouse to be. But the imitations are nothing more than cleverly disguised death traps. Some of them will take longer to realize than others. But if God has not designed it, it's going to come to ruin. And so we're going to just close out here. I'm just going to, as we go into this time of reflection and worship, just really ask a simple question. Does your life look like it has light? Or are there things that you hide in darkness because you know in your soul they're evil? And if you don't know how to deal with them, get somebody that you can leash up with, that can help pull you back on the path, can show you the path if you've never seen it. So God, we come to you tonight and ask in total honesty, God, this is just uncomfortable territory, but this is territory that the majority of our society lives in and operates in and is familiar with, but nobody wants to talk about it, and nobody wants to put a spotlight on the path, to send up a flare and say, the path is back over here. Come this way. This is just an entry point for us tonight. God, that those that are here, that those who will listen online, that they know nothing is hidden from you. And there is nowhere you will not go in their own sin to redeem, to draw back and to buy back and to restore and to bring a redemption which no one could ever have fathomed. And we ask for that to start tonight. We ask for that tonight would be a place where freedom begins. And we ask this in Jesus' name.